What's up, Tigers? How are you guys doing? I hope everything is more than fine wherever you are. This is Pepe Cuenca from Spain, and I welcome you to the game of the day of round number 8 of the Gashimov Memorial. I bring you an amazing, a fantastic game that has been played between Sergey Karjakin, the Russian player, and Magnus Carlsen, the Norwegian, the world champion. And probably this encounter make us remember the world championship that we were able to follow between these two players in Chess 24 not so much ago. So let's cut the bullshit as usual and see what happened in the 64 squares between these two superstars. So Karjakin decides to play e4 and Magnus again using his Sicilian plays c5. Really aggressive opening with the black pieces, and Karjakin plays knight f3 and knight c6. As you guys know, Magnus had been playing the Sicilian, for example, many times in the World Championship against Fabiano Caruana. So he's been having good results with that, and then he keeps playing it. So yes, everybody's trying to prepare something against Magnus, but actually nobody found anything really special, at least in the opening, right? So here there are different alternatives for white. So for example, the anti-Sicilian, one of the anti-Sicilians, the Rosolimo that we have seen in the World Championship, or also the anti-Pelican, knight c3. But here Karjakin says, you know what? I don't believe in your Sicilian. I'm gonna go for the mainline d4, and then you're gonna see what I have prepared for you. I got a bit surprised. Magnus, so d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and Magnus, of course, goes for his Pelican. Knight f6, knight c3, and e5. And this is a really difficult open to understand because it fights the principles from the classics, for example, because here black is conceding d square. So d5 is going to be extremely weak in the future, but of course, in return, black is gaining some tempi after kicking this knight back from several places. So here, white's idea is to go to d6. So for example, if you go a6, knight d6 checks, bishop takes, queen takes e6, and this position is already much better for white. So you shouldn't allow this with black. That's why that's why everybody plays here d6 in order to avoid this knight coming to d6. Here the main line is bishop g5, but Karjakin repeats Fabiano Caruana's line with knight d5. We'll come to that in a minute, but bishop g5 is the main line. This is a really natural move, trying to eliminate one of the defenders of the d5 square, and the game continues normally like a6. This knight has to go to the corner, b5, threatening b4, and here there are two main lines, knight d5 or bishop f6, which ruins black pawn structure on the king side, and then after knight d5 there is a lot of heavy theory in this opening, like 30, 40, 50 moves, like theoretical moves, like it's impossible to remember almost everything in the Pelican. That's why it's so tricky. But it looks like nobody wants to enter in these kind of lines. Probably they didn't find anything with the white pieces to get an advantage out of the opening. So that's why everybody's trying, at least in top tournaments, everybody's trying knight to d5, which forces the exchange. Of course, because now white is threatening to go knight to c7, winning the game on the spot. That's why Magnus Carlsen takes on d5, e takes d5, and there are two main lines here, knight b8 and knight e7. And the Norwegian player has tried both in the World Championship. Here he goes to e7. Black's idea is to reallocate this knight to g6 or f5, and finally bring this bishop to e7 and then go to short castle. So here we have to explain a little bit the position. White has a nice majority on the queen side, 4 pawns versus 3. So that's why normally white tries to expand this pawn majority on the queen side. In return, black has 4 versus 3 on the king side. So that's why black's play is focused on this part of the board. Normally, black later when the knight is on g6, black tries to go f5, bishop e7, moves like e4, giving this square for the knight, also opening this diagonal. Sorry guys, I know I drew like hundreds of arrows here in this position, so this is getting crazy. Let's delete all them and then be happy. So knight e7, c4, a really natural move, pushing this majority, also reinforcing the center, and knight to g6 by Magnus Carlsen. Here you guys could think, Pepe, why shouldn't we play a6 here? Looks like the most natural move to me, like kicking this knight back. This knight is really annoying, so it's like a pain in the ass, so why not to kick this knight back from b5? Well, the problem is that now queen a4 just wins again on the spot. This is a really well-known trick, so you guys shouldn't fall for this. Because now white is threatening to go knight c7 or knight d6 with a double check, and actually it's checkmate, right? So the thing is, you can't play bishop d7 because there's knight d6, same reason after queen d7, even knight c7 is stronger, and you can't take on b5 because the rook on a8 is hanging. So this is a well-known trick, you shouldn't fall for that. So that's why after c4, black goes knight g6. And now white tries to go for the same trick, queen a4. Idea, after queen d7, knight c7 just wins on the spot, but now the difference is that you can play bishop d7. The point is, d6 now is protected. So you can't take on d6, it would be crazy, right? So there's no point of taking on d6. That's why now black is threatening to go a6, and now white will be losing on the spot. So that's why queen b4 was played by Sergey Karjakin. We're still following theory. The same was played between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. Now white is threatening to take on b4, and here there are two, let's say, natural moves for black here. Magnus has tried both. One of them is queen b8, the other one is bishop f5 here. And here Karjakin tries to show Magnus who is the boss, at least in this game, because he plays queen a4, which forces black to go back to d7, since now queen d7 runs into knight c7. So that's why bishop d7, queen b4 was played, bishop f5, and Karjakin changes with the move h4. And of course Magnus is leading the tournament after round number 7, 1 point ahead of his rivals. So that's why Karjakin is one of the guys after Magnus. So he has to go for the win in order to catch him in this tournament. And he's got the white pieces, right? So almost everybody's happy with the black pieces with a drop in top tournaments. So that's why he changes and he plays h4. And this is also what Fabiano played against Magnus in the World Championship. This move makes a lot of sense. Now you want to push h5, and this knight hasn't got too many squares. So that's why black should stop that. And there are two ways. One of them is taking the pawn on h4. But this move is just really terrible. Why, guys? Because you can't just take this knight, since after queen takes h4, there's knight to c7, and then you win this rook and white's a piece up, basically. So that's why black normally plays here h5, stopping this pawn. And here is where the novelty comes from Sergey Karjakin. Fabiano Caruana played bishop e3 in his game against Magnus Carlsen, and it ended up in a draw. And Karjakin plays bishop g5, attacking the queen. Okay, the point is f6 is not really good here now, because after bishop e3 now you have cut the action from the queen to the h4 pawn, and also you are weakening the e6 square, right? So the light squares are pretty weak now in this position. That's why f6 is not a really good move. And also bishop e7 doesn't seem to work, because after bishop takes e7 you can't take with the knight or the queen, because d6 will be falling and nobody wants to take with the king, right? Who wants to bring this king to dance in the center of the board? We know this king is a little devil and he loves dancing in the night, you know, and he loves going to salsa discos and salsa parties. But no, it's not the time. You know, you are facing Sergey Karjakin, so he wants to stay in the couch, like with the heater and stuff like that, eating sweets, so on e8 and then go to short castle, but not taking this guy on e7. So that's why after bishop g5, queen b8 was played by Magnus Carlsen. Now he protects the d6 pawn from there, and also black is ready to kick this knight back from b5 with the move a6. Here, Sergey Karjakin played bishop e2, a normal development move, preparing this king for short castling, and now a6, finally kicking this knight back from b5. The knight has to go back to c3, and now, given the fact that this knight is not on b5 anymore, Carlsen plays queen c7, now improving the position of the queen, controlling the b6 square, and also allowing this rook to join the party on b8 or c8 later. Here, g3 was played by Sergey Karjakin, really natural move, covering f4. Now, for example, this knight could jump to f4 in the next move, attacking e2, attacking g2. And here, after g3, Magnus plays bishop e7, offering the bishop exchange to Sergey Karjakin. And now it's a really important moment. Would you guys exchange this bishop? Well, probably it's a bad idea. Karjakin played bishop e3. The reason is, if you take on e7, after a move like knight e7, white has weakened a lot the dark squares in this position. And this bishop on e7 was rather passive, but the bishop on e3 was controlling a lot of squares in this board, right? And now, for example, after short castle, bishop g6, this knight is ready to come to f5 and to d4, and this knight is just like the boss, right, on d4. It's controlling everything and is a mafia knight. So, after bishop e7, bishop e3 was played, and now Magnus plays e4. A really typical move in these kind of positions, like giving this square for the knight. And now, as you can see, white has played g3 and has weakened these two really tasty squares, f3 and d3. So Karjakin goes short castle, and here this move came as a surprise to me. When I was following this game, I was expecting knight e5. Looked like the most natural move to me, but Magnus says, you know what, I don't care, I'm gonna sacrifice another pawn. If you guys hadn't enough with the previous game where I sacrificed that pawn on e3 against Gideon, I'm gonna sacrifice another pawn on h5. I just don't care, you know. And after bishop takes h5, Magnus is gonna activate his pieces really quickly. This position is extremely complicated because, as I said, black has sacrificed a pawn, but it has a lot of compensation. Magnus starts with knight e5, attacking c4, and white comes back with the bishop to e2. This bishop has done his job, capturing this pawn on h5, and from here protects c4, d3, and f3. And Magnus goes for queen d7. An amazing move, which looks very, very humble, but it's extremely dangerous. Why? If you play like a normal move, for example, rook a to d1, black wants to play bishop g4, offering the exchange of this extremely important bishop on e2. Why is this bishop so important? Because it's covering the weakest squares for white in the board. f3 is extremely important because now, if you take on g4, queen takes e4, knight f3 is coming, and queen h3. And if you try to stop that with king g2, who solves the issue normally? You guys know, Facundo. Here, f5, threatening f4, and after bishop f4, for example, something like knight g6, threatening here, white can go to the showers already. So that's why after queen d7, Karjakin realizes about this idea with bishop g4, and then he tries to offer a queen exchange with queen a4. Of course, white would be very, very happy exchanging queens because white's a pawn up, and then suddenly the danger against his king will disappear. That's why Magnus keeps the queen on the board with the move queen c8, and also keep threatening bishop g4. The queen on c8 also puts an eye on the c4 pawn. And here Karjakin goes for a risky decision, but really natural, because this pawn is a pain in the ass. So that's why he goes and sacrifices in a kamikaze way the Carlitos pawn. The idea is that after d takes e5, as happened in the game, knight takes e4, and finally this pawn has disappeared from the board, and f3 is not so weak anymore. But in return, Magnus has won a nice majority on the queen side that he's gonna use. He starts with c4, now cutting the action from the queen and also attacking now this knight from e4. And here the engine says that the best move here was queen c2. It's not a human move at all, because you are pinning yourself, right? So that's why Karjakin played knight c3. Knight c3 looks more natural, and Carlsen goes for b5, attacking this queen. This queen only has one interesting square, and this is to go back home on d1. And here Magnus keeps winning tempi on the queen side by playing b4 and forces this knight to go to the corner to a4, sorry, because there is no other available square. And here Magnus keeps putting a lot of pressure in this position, because now bishop e4 is a fantastic move. He doesn't care about this fork on b6. He's just threatening to go queen h3. There's a fantastic party on h3, and he wants to join that party, salsa party on h3. And if you do nothing, basically something like rook c1 or knight b6, then queen h3 just wins on the spot, because now this is the first time in history that Facundo is not solving a problem, because now not even Facundo, not even the Chuck Norris of chess can solve the problem now, because g3 is falling, king h1 and knight g4. You guys should mark this day on the calendar, because the first day in chess history, I was gonna say, but in human history, that Facundo is not solving a problem. So that's why White has to do something about that. And even playing f3 doesn't work, because now also queen h3 is really strong, and we're gonna analyze two variations here. First, taking on e4. This looks rather simple for black. You give a couple of checks and then you take on e3 with a check, winning the game. And if you try to protect g3 with bishop f2 and covering f3, there's a brilliant move here for black, and this is the move knight g4, boom, and white has to resign. You can't take this guy because there's queen h2, you can't take this guy because there's queen g2 or queen h1, and that's checkmate, buddy. Who's your daddy? So f3 is not working, and Karjakin has to take desperate measures, and he goes for queen d4, and looks good because it's attacking two pieces, also threatening this fork. So Magnus solves all these three problems with the move queen to f5, and also he's threatening now to go knight f3, which is just killing white, because you do something like rook d1 again, then knight f3, boom, forcing white to take because the queen is hanging. Takes queen f3, and then nobody can stop the mate on g2. So that's why after queen f5, the engine one says that the best move is f3. It's not a human move again, because you're just losing a pawn after bishop takes f3, and the engine says that gives a variation like this: rook a e1, rook d8, queen f4, takes, knight g6, and the engine says that this position is a little bit better for black, but nothing special. And Karjakin could give a good fight here in this position. So instead of f3, Karjakin went for f4. And now looks very good, because there's no knight f3 now. You're winning a tempo, kicking this knight back, but then Magnus finds again a fantastic move, queen g6. He doesn't care about this knight on e5. He's threatening something more important, which is mate on g3. You can't take on e5. There's queen g3, checkmate, and then to the showers. So that's why after queen g6, again, white is in an extremely difficult situation. Karjakin played bishop f2, but for example, if you go king h2, there is this beautiful move, boom, bishop takes h4. You can't take because there is mate on g2, and then if you go rook g1, this simple and humble and beautiful move, bishop f6, just wins, because you are threatening like two mates on h7, on h6, and then also like thousands of discover moves with your knight. So that's why after queen g6, bishop f2 was played, and Magnus played knight d3. This move is brilliant too, because now Magnus is threatening to capture on f4 in many variations. You are threatening to capture on f2. Also, this bishop is joining the party, attacking this queen from f6. So it's a really tough position for white to play. And here, if you get greedy and get this pawn on c4, then black would just win the game. Just too many tempi. All black pieces are extremely well coordinated and extremely active. So let's say queen d4, and now bishop f6, and then, or even knight f4. And then this looks terrible for the white player. So that's why here Karjakin plays h5, saying, you know, Magnus, I don't want you on the g file. Like, you're giving me so many nightmares in this game. So Magnus plays queen f5, And here, this was a really desperate position for Karjakin. You don't want to take on d3 because after c takes d3, black has the bishop pair and an extremely weak king on the king side. And this looks just terrible for Karjakin. So that's why he tries to simplify the position a little bit and eliminate this guy from e4. That's why he played bishop g4 here in this position. Queen takes from Magnus. Queen takes and bishop d6. Another humble move, which is threatening to go knight f4. Again, since there's a pin on the g5. Karjakin, Mr. Igloo. We call him like that because he's really cold defending position. We call him Mr. Igloo or Ice Cube's Karjakin too. So Queen g2 was played and now knight f4 is not possible anymore. Magnus plays simple chess. Last piece is coming to the action. The rooks. Rook e8, he's threatening to go rook e2 with devastating consequences for the white player. You cannot even fight for the e file because this knight is controlling everything. So bishop d4 was played, stopping rook e2, but then Magnus says, you know, it's time to get some free food, the h5 pawn. Now we are balancing material and black is much more active. So this is, of course, great advantage for Magnus. Queen f3, aiming to exchange the queens, but Magnus doesn't go for this. Queen g6, again threatening knight f4. King h1 in order to stop knight f4, but now rook e4, attacking the bishop on d4 and bringing the last piece to the action. Rook f to e8, and black is just much better. Karjakin played bishop f2, and after rook f to e8, actually Karjakin resigned. And some of you will be asking, what is this Spanish stupid guy say? I don't know what I said. What is this stupid Spanish guy saying? Why did he resign? We are balancing material, but the position is just a disaster. Black is threatening so much stuff here in this position. For example, if you do nothing, let's say knight b6, black is just threatening to take on f2. If you take with the rook, there is rook e3 followed by rook g3 winning. If you take with the queen, there is rook e2 followed by queen h6 or queen h7 followed by queen h2. And then if you try to go something like bishop g1 to protect your guy, then queen h6, king g2, rook e2, the other rook comes to the 7th rank, bishop f2, and there are so many finishes here. But I'm just going to show you one beautiful one. Bishop takes f4, g takes f4, knight takes f4, king g3, queen h3. This king looks like in danger at least, right? g5, only move, king takes, rook e5, only move, king f4, and rook f5, checkmate. What do you guys think? From my point of view, this has been one of the best Magnus's games in the last months. And Magnus is back to 2860 FIDE rating points. Again, 40 points ahead of the second best player in the world, which is Fabiano Caruana. In my opinion, this is a fantastic attacking masterpiece, again, using the Sicilian. I hope you guys enjoyed this game. It's been a pleasure for me to be with all of you guys. And remember, if you drink, don't drive. See you in the next video of game number 9 and last one from the Gashimo Memorial. And you guys remember, I'll be doing Banter Blitz 3 hours on Wednesday and 3 hours on Thursday in English as well. So hope you'll be there. So see you guys. Bye bye.